I was lying in the hospital after a heart attack, and my daughter called me at night. I'm getting married. The apartment and car are sold. Bye. Her betrayal hit harder than a heart attack, but I answered calmly. Okay, but you forgot one thing, she exclaimed. What do you mean? I laughed out loud because the apartment she had sold was actually my clever trap. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The antiseptic smell burned my nostrils as consciousness crept back. Heart monitor, beeping steadily. V-tube tugging at my left arm every time I shifted. 2 days since the attack, and sleep still came in fragments between nurse visits and chest pains. The phone's shrill ring cut through the silence like a blade. AM. Who calls a heart patient at this hour? My hand trembled, reaching for the receiver, IV line restricting my movement. The plastic felt cold against my ear. Dad, it's me. Mary's voice, not the warm tone I remembered from years past, but something distant. Clinical. Sweetheart, relief flooded through me despite the coldness. Are you okay? It's so late. I'm calling to let you know I'm getting married tomorrow. The words hit harder than the heart attack had. I struggled to sit up straighter, monitor beeping faster. Married? Tomorrow? But Mary, you never said? In Las Vegas. Leo and I decided not to wait. Her tone remained flat, businesslike. The apartment and car are sold. The money will help with the wedding and honeymoon. My apartment, the one I bought for her, future, put in my name as security. The car I gifted her for graduation, sold. Sold? My voice came out weaker than intended. But honey, we need to talk about... There's nothing to discuss. I'm 28, Dad. I can make my own decisions. Each word felt calculated, rehearsed. Leo says you've been too controlling, keeping me dependent. This is my chance for independence. Leo says, of course. The heart monitor's rhythm quickened. Not from the medical condition this time, but from something deeper. Something transforming inside my chest. Mary, please. After everything we've been through since Mom died, I need to focus on my new life now. The dismissal in her voice cut deep. Leo's right. You've held me back long enough. I'm sorry about your heart, but I can't let guilt control my choices anymore. 15 years. 15 years since Sarah passed, since I devoted everything to this daughter, bought her the apartment, paid for college, supported her dreams, while my own slowly died in corporate law offices, until my heart couldn't take the stress anymore. Goodbye, Dad. Fine. The word came out steadier than I felt. But you forgot one thing. Silence stretched across the line. Then irritation crept into her voice. What do you mean? Something inside me had shifted during this conversation. The loving father she remembered was transforming into someone she didn't know existed, someone who'd spent 30 years navigating corporate contracts and legal loopholes. A low laugh escaped my throat, surprising us both. You'll find out soon enough. Good luck with your wedding, sweetheart. I hung up before she could respond. The room fell silent except for the heart monitor's steady rhythm and distant sounds of the night shift. My pulse had stabilized, but something fundamental had changed. I stared at the small frame photo on the bedside table. Mary at her college graduation, radiant between Sarah and me. 3 years ago, when she still called me Daddy and meant it, the photograph trembled in my hands. Mary at 25, graduation day, her arm wrapped around mine while Sarah's memory seemed to hover between us. 3 years ago, she still smiled like that, still called me Daddy when she was excited. 15 years, that's how long I'd been doing this alone. Sarah's voice echoed from the deepest places of memory. Promise me you'll take care of our girl. She'll need you more than ever. The cancer ward smelled like disinfectant and dying dreams, but I'd held her hand and sworn an oath that shaped every decision since. I promise. She'll never want for anything. Mary had been 13 then, sobbing into my shoulder at the funeral, while I wondered how to raise a teenage daughter alone. Corporate law had taught me to read contracts, not broken hearts. But love makes you learn fast. Those college years blurred together in a beautiful haze of sacrifice. Tuition checks that emptied my retirement fund. Late-night phone calls about exams and boys and dreams that seemed so important at 18. Dad, I don't know how to thank you for everything. Her voice had been warm then, grateful. Real. Just be happy, sweetheart. That's all the thanks I need. I remembered the apartment hunt 5 years ago, walking through dozens of properties in safe neighborhoods, imagining Mary coming home to her own space. The day I handed her the keys, watching her spin around that empty living room like she was dancing with possibility itself. I can't believe this is really mine. She'd hugged me so tight my ribs ached. Pure joy, the kind that makes sacrifice feel like privilege. You deserve it. Your mother would be so proud. The legal paperwork had been carefully structured, a trust arrangement that protected both of us. Though Mary never needed to understand those details, she was happy. That was enough. But something changed 8 months ago. The first mention of Leo's name came during a Sunday dinner that felt different, distant. "I've met someone special, Dad." The excitement in her voice had seemed genuine then, infectious even. I'd been happy for her, ready to welcome another person into our small family. If only I'd known what Leo Morrison really wanted. Phone calls became shorter. Sunday dinners turned into quick coffee meetings, then excuses about being busy. Mary's laughter grew rare, replaced by defensive silences whenever I asked about her life. "Dad, you need to stop being so involved in my life." That conversation 2 months ago still stung. We'd been sitting in her favorite restaurant, the one where we'd celebrated every milestone since high school. "I just want what's best for you." "Leo thinks you're too controlling," Leo thinks. When had my daughter's thoughts become someone else's words? The heart monitor's rhythm quickened as memories collided with tonight's betrayal. My chest tightened, not from the medical condition, but from understanding how completely I'd lost her. The daughter who once thanked me for everything had just sold my gifts to fund her escape from me. That July evening 8 months ago started with such promise. Mary had chosen Bella Vista for dinner, the upscale Italian place where we'd celebrated her college acceptance years before. She was practically glowing when I walked in, seated at our usual corner booth with a man I'd never seen. "Dad, this is Leo Morrison." "Leo, my father, Dale Rivera." Leo stood to shake hands, tall, well-dressed, confident in that particular way that immediately triggered my courtroom instincts. His grip was firm, lasting just a moment too long, his blue eyes studying my face like he was memorizing it. "Mr. Rivera, Mary's told me so much about you. The successful attorney who raised an amazing daughter single-handedly." Smooth voice, practiced smile. "Too perfect. Please call me Dale." "And Mary did most of the work herself?" "Modest and wise. I can see where Mary gets her best qualities." Mary beamed, reaching for Leo's hand across the white tablecloth. "Isn't he sweet, Dad?" Sweet wasn't the word I'd have chosen. Calculating, maybe. Leo's expensive watch caught the candlelight, a Rolex that didn't match his vague explanation of working in consulting. His suit was tailored, his shoes Italian leather. Either consulting paid incredibly well, or Leo had other sources of income. "What line of work are you in exactly?" I asked, settling into my seat. "I help people optimize their opportunities. Strategic planning, you might say." Mary jumped in before I could press further. "Leo's being modest. He's brilliant with strategy and investments." That wasn't really an answer, but Mary's enthusiasm made it difficult to push. Leo seemed to sense my skepticism, leaning forward with practiced sincerity. "Dale, you've done an incredible job with Mary. I have to ask, though, don't you think you've been almost too generous? Some people might take advantage of such kindness." The comment hit like a calculated punch. Was he suggesting Mary was taking advantage of me, or was this some kind of test? "Mary's apartment is beautiful, by the way," Leo continued smoothly. "You have excellent taste in real estate investments." There it was, interest in the apartment. My lawyer brain started cataloging red flags. Mary squeezed Leo's arm proudly. "Dad found the perfect place for me. I'm so lucky." "You deserve everything good in life," Leo murmured, but his eyes remained fixed on me. "Your father's very generous. Smart investments in the right properties." The waiter approached, and Leo insisted on ordering an expensive bottle of wine. When the check came, he made the proper protest about paying, but his relief when I picked up the tab was obvious. A man with a Rolex who couldn't afford dinner. Walking to the parking lot afterward, I noticed Leo's car, a BMW that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. The pieces didn't fit together, and 30 years of legal practice had taught me that inconsistencies usually meant Someone was lying. "It was wonderful meeting you, Dale," Leo said, that perfect smile never wavering. "I hope we'll be seeing a lot more of each other." As I drove home that night, every instinct I'd honed in decades of depositions and cross-examinations screamed warnings. But Mary was happy, glowing with that special light that only comes from being in love. Tuesday morning arrived with discharge papers and a transformation I hadn't anticipated. The nurse wheeled me to the hospital entrance, chattering about rest and follow-up appointments, but my mind was already miles ahead. Sitting in the taxi, watching familiar San Diego streets pass by, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the sharp focus that once made me successful in corporate law. My house in Hillcrest looked smaller than I remembered. 4 days in the hospital had given me perspective on the life I'd been living. Quiet, orderly, and ultimately meaningless without Mary. Now it would serve a different purpose. The first hour back involved the mundane, unpacking medications, checking mail, making coffee with hands that still trembled slightly. But by noon I'd cleared my dining room table and spread out 15 years of legal documents. Like evidence in a case, the apartment purchase papers told the story clearly. Mary Rivera was listed as beneficiary, but the property ownership remained in the Dale Rivera family trust. She had no legal right to sell anything. Leo had convinced her to commit fraud, possibly without her realizing it. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized decades ago. Marcus Porter, Investigations. "Marcus, it's Dale Rivera. I need a complete background check on someone. This is personal, but I'm prepared for whatever it costs." A pause. "Dale Rivera, haven't heard from you in years. What's the situation?" "My daughter's involved with someone who's not what he appears to be. I need facts, not suspicions." Marcus had worked with my law firm on dozens of cases. Divorce settlements, corporate espionage, insurance fraud. If anyone could uncover Leo's secrets, it was him. "Give me everything you know about this guy." I dictated Leo's full name, the BMW license plate I'd memorized, Mary's address where he'd been spending time. Marcus took notes with professional efficiency. Preliminary report in 48 hours. Full workup within a week. "My rates haven't changed since you retired." "Money's not an issue. I want to know everything. Employment history, financial records, previous relationships, legal troubles, everything." After hanging up, I organized my space with the methodical precision that had once organized complex corporate transactions. Legal pads, laptop, phone charger, a coffee cup that would be refilled many times. My dining room was becoming a war room. By 3 o'clock, Marcus called back. "Dale, I've got preliminary findings on your Leo Morrison. You're not going to like this." I gripped the phone tighter. "Tell me." "Employment history is sketchy at best. Claims to work in consulting, but I can't verify any actual clients. Lives in a luxury apartment complex that runs about $4,000 a month. Drives a BMW that's financed to the limit." "How does he afford it?" "That's the concerning part. I found a pattern. 3 different women in the past 5 years, all ended relationships around the time their financial situations got complicated. 2 filed restraining orders that were later dropped. 1 moved to another state." My chest tightened, but not from the heart condition. "What kind of complications?" "Credit problems, unauthorized charges, missing savings. Nothing that stuck legally, but the pattern's clear. This guy's a professional." "Keep digging. I need everything you can find." Setting down the phone, I stared at the trust documents spread across my table. Mary thought she'd gained independence by selling the apartment. Instead, she'd handed Leo exactly what he wanted. Access to what he believed was easy money. But Leo had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated the man whose daughter he was using. Calf? Luna buzzed with afternoon energy when I arrived at 2 o'clock, choosing a corner table with clear sight lines to both entrance and exit. Old habits from depositions. Control the environment, anticipate reactions, document everything. The manila folder beside my coffee cup contained 15 years of legal paperwork that would shatter Mary's confidence. She walked in 10 minutes late, wedding ring catching the light like a declaration of war. Designer handbag, expensive shoes, the confident stride of someone who believed she'd won. The transformation from my loving daughter to this stranger still took my breath away. "Thank you for coming, Mary. I wasn't sure you would." She slid into the chair across from me, back rigid. I'm here to tell you to stop interfering in my life. Leo and I are married now. Married. The word hung between us like a weapon. About that, and about the apartment sale, we need to discuss some legal issues. There are no legal issues. Her voice carried Leo's arrogance. Everything's been handled properly. I opened the folder with deliberate precision, removing documents that had been filed away since she was 23. Mary, I need to show you something. These are the original papers from when I bought your apartment. I don't care about old paperwork. I sold it. It's done. Look at the ownership structure. I turned the deed toward her, my finger pointing to specific language. See this section about trust beneficiary versus legal ownership? Mary leaned forward reluctantly, scanning text she'd never bothered to read. What are you talking about? The apartment was never legally yours to sell. It's held in the Dale Rivera Family Trust, with me as trustee and you as beneficiary. You can live there, but you cannot sell it without my written consent. The color drained from her face. That's impossible. I have the deed. You have a beneficiary document, not an ownership deed. There's a significant legal difference. I pulled out additional paperwork. Trust establishment documents, legal correspondence, title insurance policies. The sale you completed was legally void. Her hands shook as she examined the papers. You're lying. Leo checked all the paperwork. Leo isn't a lawyer. He wouldn't recognize trust structures or understand property law. Each word was measured, professional. This arrangement is completely legal and fairly common in estate planning. This can't be right. Mary's voice cracked. I signed papers. Money changed hands. The buyers will discover the title defect within weeks. Their lawyers will demand their money back. The escrow company will reverse the transaction. She stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Why didn't you tell me about this trust thing? Because I trusted you to discuss major financial decisions with me before acting. I established this structure to protect your interests, not to control you. Mary's phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly. Probably Leo wondering about our meeting. Leo says you've been manipulating me my whole life. Leo says many things. I gathered the papers methodically. Has he shown you documentation of his consulting business? Client contracts? Tax returns? That's none of your business. Everything about Leo Morrison is my business now. The professional mask slipped just enough to let her see the fury underneath. You gave a stranger access to what he believed was $500,000 in real estate equity. He's my husband. He's a fraud investigator's dream case. I closed the folder. Decision made. But you'll figure that out soon enough. Mary stood abruptly, chair scraping against floor. I won't let you destroy my marriage. I don't need to destroy anything, sweetheart. Leo's already doing that himself. She stormed toward the exit and then turned back. What happens now? Now you go home and tell your husband that his payday just evaporated. Then we'll see what kind of man you really married. The next morning I organized my dining room like a war room. Trust documents in chronological order. Property records cross-referenced. Communication histories with Mary documented and dated. 30 years of legal practice had taught me that preparation wins battles, not passion. My phone rang at 10:30. Marcus Porter, the detective. Dale, I've got more on your Leo Morrison. You're going to want to hear this sitting down. I'm listening. Patterns worse than I initially reported. 5 women over 8 years, not 3. 2 restraining orders. 3 civil suits settled quietly. 1 bankruptcy filing that mysteriously disappeared. This guy's a professional. What kind of professional? The kind who researches targets carefully. Older women, recent widows, financially comfortable but emotionally vulnerable. He's got a playbook. I made notes methodically. Current financial status. Underwater on everything. BMW lease about to default. Apartment rent 3 months behind. Credit cards maxed. He needed Mary's apartment money badly. Needed. Past tense. Leo was about to discover his payday had evaporated. By noon, Mary was calling. Dad, Leo says you can't legally do this. He's hiring a lawyer. Of course he is. I kept my voice neutral. Mary, has Leo shown you his tax returns, business license, any documentation of his consulting work? Silence, then defensive. We're married. I don't need to see his papers. You just learned you don't legally own the apartment you thought you sold. Maybe it's time to ask some questions. She hung up. At 3 o'clock, a certified letter arrived. Demand for immediate cessation of elder abuse and fraudulent property claims. Screamed the letterhead from a law office I'd never heard of. The grammar was poor, the legal theory non-existent, but the aggression was impressive. Leo's attorney, and I use the term loosely, demanded I immediately cease all harassment of Mr. Morrison's wife and provide documentation proving legal right to property illegally claimed through manipulation of vulnerable family member. I read it twice, then called Richard Maxwell, my former law partner. Richard, someone's challenging my family trust documentation. Can you review something? Dale, your trust work was always bulletproof. What's the concern? I faxed the demand letter. Richard called back in 10 minutes, laughing. This guy got his law degree from a cereal box. Elder abuse? With a trust you established 5 years ago when you were mentally sharp and independently represented? Property manipulation? You've got title insurance and bank records going back decades. So I should be worried. Only about wasting postage on your response. But I wasn't just responding to Leo's pathetic legal threat. I was preparing for war. That evening, I drafted my reply with surgical precision. Every claim in Leo's letter was dissected and demolished, with citations to relevant case law. I included copies of the original trust documents, notarized and witnessed, bank records showing the apartment purchase. Title, Insurance confirming clear ownership transfer to the trust. Then I added a paragraph that would keep Leo awake at night. Please advise your client that any further frivolous legal actions will result in full investigation of his background, financial status, and history with other vulnerable women. We have obtained preliminary information suggesting patterns of predatory behavior that may interest law enforcement. I sealed the letter at midnight, satisfied. Leo had made his first move, amateur hour. Marcus called at 10 Friday morning with the tone of a detective who'd struck gold. Dale, you need to sit down for this. Leo Morrison isn't just a con artist, he's a professional. 2 previous marriages, both ending the same way your daughter's heading. I pulled out a legal pad, ready to document everything. Give me names and dates. Amanda Porter, married March 2018, divorced February 2019. Financial advisor, lost $180,000. Jennifer Walsh, married June 2020, divorced September 2022. Real estate agent, lost $250,000 plus her rental property. My pen moved steadily across the page. Same pattern? Identical? Whirlwind romance, rushed marriage, gradual access to finances, then disappearance when the money runs out. Both women filed civil suits. Both settled quietly rather than face public humiliation. Are they willing to testify? Already contacted them. They want Leo stopped before he does it again. 3 hours later, I spread the evidence across my dining room table, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that finally made sense. Marriage certificates, financial records, witness statements from 2 broken women who'd fallen for the same charming smile that had captivated my daughter. At 2 o'clock, I called Mary. We need to meet. I have information about Leo that changes everything. More legal attacks? I'm tired of this war you've started. This isn't about law, Mary. It's about Leo's history. His previous marriages. Silence. Then carefully. Leo was never married before. Calf. Luna. 1 hour. Bring an open mind. She arrived reluctant and defensive, sliding into the same chair she'd occupied during our last confrontation. The manila folder between us looked innocent enough, but its contents would demolish everything she believed about her husband. Mary, I need you to look at these documents. They're difficult, but they're real. More property papers, more legal tricks. I opened the folder and placed the first marriage certificate on the table. Amanda Porter and Leo Morrison, married March 15th, 2018. Mary stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language. This is fake. You had someone create false papers. The second certificate joined the first. Jennifer Walsh and Leo Morrison, married June 3rd, 2020. Her face went pale. That's impossible. Leo told me I was his first serious relationship since college. Read Amanda's statement. I handed her a typed page. Notice anything familiar about how Leo courted her? Mary's hands trembled as she read. I watched her expression change from disbelief to recognition to growing horror. He said the same things to her, word for word, the exact same promises about building a future together. Now read Jennifer's account. This time, Mary's reaction was physical. She pushed back from the table, shaking her head. No, this can't be real. Leo loves me. Leo loved Amanda's financial portfolio, he loved Jennifer's real estate investments, and he loved what he thought was your $500,000 apartment. You're lying. But her voice lacked conviction now. I spread out the financial records, the timeline comparisons, the pattern analysis Marcus had prepared. Amanda lost her life savings. Jennifer had to declare bankruptcy. Both relationships lasted exactly the same time frame, 18 months from meeting to financial devastation. Mary sat frozen, staring at evidence that couldn't be denied. How long have we been together? 8 months, right on schedule for his usual timeline. She looked up at me with eyes that finally understood. I'm not his wife, I'm his third victim. Her phone buzzed. Leo's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, I said quietly. 3 days later, I stood outside the Chapel of Eternal Love on the Las Vegas Strip, holding a manila folder that would end Leo Morrison's career as a predator. Marcus had tracked them here through credit card records, Leo's final desperate gambit to legitimize his access to what he still believed was Mary's money. The chapel reeked of artificial romance, plastic flowers, velvet drapes, and the lingering scent of too many rushed weddings. 20 guests filled the small space, mostly Leo's business associates, who had no idea they were witnessing fraud in real time. Mary looked beautiful in her wedding dress, but her eyes held the hollow look of someone acting against their better judgment. Leo stood at the altar in an expensive suit he couldn't afford, eager to complete what he thought would be his biggest score. The officiant cleared his throat. If anyone has reason why these two should not be wed, speak now, or forever. Hold your peace. I stepped forward from the back of the chapel. I have information this bride needs before making this commitment. The chapel fell silent. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Leo's face went white, then flushed with rage. This is a private ceremony, Leo snarled. You weren't invited. Mary, before you sign legal documents, you should know exactly who you're signing with. I walked calmly down the aisle, my folder held like a weapon. Mary stared at me with a mixture of anger and something that might have been relief. Dad, we already discussed this. Leo explained everything. Did he explain Amanda Porter? I opened the folder and placed the first marriage certificate on the altar. Married to Leo Morrison, March 2018. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Leo lunged forward, trying to grab the document. Those are fabricated. He's trying to destroy us. I calmly placed the second certificate beside the first. Jennifer Walsh, married to Leo Morrison, June 2020. Mary's bouquet trembled in her hands. Leo, you said these marriages never happened. I can explain everything privately, Leo said, his charm cracking. Don't let him manipulate you. But I was already spreading the financial records across the altar, like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Amanda lost $180,000. Jennifer lost $250,000. Both women trusted Leo with their life savings. The wedding guests pressed closer, examining the documents. Leo's business associates were quietly backing toward the exits. Mary, I said gently, read Jennifer's statement. Notice anything familiar about how Leo courted her? With shaking hands, Mary picked up the typed page. As she read, her face crumbled. He used the same words, the exact same promises he made to me. Don't listen to him. Leo grabbed Mary's arm. We can leave right now. Start fresh somewhere else. But Mary was staring at the marriage certificates, the financial records, the pattern that could no longer be denied. You told me I was your first real love. You are. These women meant nothing. Then why did you steal from them? The question hung in the air like an indictment. Leo's mask finally slipped completely, revealing the desperate predator underneath. I never stole anything. They gave me money, willingly. The same way I was going to give you money from selling the apartment? That's different. We're married. What's yours is mine. Mary slowly removed her wedding ring, holding it like it had turned to poison. We're not married yet, and we're not going to be. She walked away from the altar, still in her wedding dress but no longer a bride. Leo called after her, his voice rising to a shout, but she didn't look back. As I followed Mary toward the chapel exit, I heard Leo behind us, still trying to salvage his scheme. But his audience was gone, his credibility destroyed, his perfect plan reduced to public humiliation. 2 days after Las Vegas, my phone rang at 10 in the morning. Mary's name on the screen. The first time she'd called me since the chapel confrontation. Dad? Her voice sounded small, uncertain. I owe you an apology. I set down my coffee, giving her my complete attention. Mary, you don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you're safe. How did you know? From the very beginning, how did you see through Leo when I couldn't? Experience, sweetheart. 30 years of reading people in depositions, and a father's instinct to protect his daughter. There was silence, then a shaky breath. I feel so stupid. All those red flags I ignored because I wanted to believe he loved me. You're not stupid. Leo's a professional. He's done this before, and he'll try to do it again unless we stop him. That afternoon, I activated the most powerful weapon in my arsenal, my professional network. 3 decades of legal relationships, former colleagues now sitting as judges, partners in major firms, prosecutors who owed me favors. Richard Maxwell took my first call. Richard, I need Leo Morrison investigated from every possible angle. Business licenses, tax records, credit history, employment verification, everything. Dale, after seeing those documents you provided, we're already moving. The State Business Licensing Board opened an investigation yesterday. His consulting business? Complete fabrication. No registered clients. No business address. No valid credentials. What about criminal charges? Building the case now. 3 victims willing to testify. Documented financial fraud patterns. The district attorney's interested. By evening, the systematic destruction of Leo Morrison was underway. Credit agencies received detailed fraud reports. Banking relationships were being scrutinized. Civil lawsuit preparations were being filed by Amanda and Jennifer's attorneys. Meanwhile, Leo was becoming increasingly desperate. Mary showed me the texts, the voicemails, the escalating attempts to maintain control. Mary, don't let him turn you against me. We can still work this out. Work what out, Leo? She'd responded. The lies, the other wives, the theft? His reply had grown more aggressive. Those documents were fabricated. Your father paid people to create false evidence. Stop. Just stop calling me. But Leo wasn't stopping. Marcus, my detective, reported that Leo had been seen outside Mary's apartment building, testing door handles, asking neighbors about her schedule. He's escalating, Marcus warned during our evening call. Financial pressures mounting. His BMW got repossessed today, and he's 3 months behind on rent. Desperate people do desperate things. I looked out my window at the quiet Hillcrest neighborhood where I'd lived peacefully for 20 years. That peace was about to end. What kind of desperate things? Hard to say. But men like Leo don't just disappear quietly. They need to blame someone for their failures, and right now, you're the target. Mary had changed her locks, removed Leo from any shared accounts, and started therapy to process the psychological manipulation she'd endured. She was reclaiming her life piece by piece, but healing takes time. Leo, meanwhile, was running out of both time and options. That night, my phone rang again. Unknown number, but I recognized Leo's voice immediately. You destroyed my life, old man. You destroyed your own life. I just exposed it. Mary was mine. The apartment was mine. Everything was mine until you interfered. Mary was never yours, Leo. She was your victim, and the apartment was always mine. The line went quiet for a long moment. When Leo spoke again, his voice carried a coldness that made me reach for the security system remote. This isn't over, Dale, though? Not by a long shot. April 1st arrived with news that should have been triumphant. Richard called at 9 in the morning with an update on our systematic campaign against Leo Morrison. Dale, the Business Licensing Board, is investigating. His consulting claims are complete fabrication. No registered clients, no business address, no valid credentials whatsoever. Excellent. What about the criminal referral? That's where things get complicated. Richard's tone shifted. Leo hired competent counsel. Very competent. Daniel Reeves from Morrison & Associates. My confidence wavered. Reeves had a reputation for getting fraud charges dismissed on technicalities. How competent? The kind who finds loopholes in airtight cases. They're challenging everything procedurally. Evidence chain, jurisdiction issues, statute of limitations questions. This could drag on for months. Months. I'd expected weeks. By afternoon, worse news arrived. Marcus, my detective, called with information that made my stomach clench. Dale, we have a problem. Leo's been visiting Mary. That's impossible. She blocked his calls, changed her locks. He's convincing, Dale. Really convincing. My surveillance shows 2 meetings this week. Long conversations. She's listening to him. I drove to Mary's apartment immediately, using my emergency key. She was sitting at her kitchen table, looking tired and confused. Mary, we need to talk. Dad, you're destroying Leo out of spite, not protection. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Mary, he's manipulating you again. Can't you see what he's doing? What I see is you using your power to hurt someone I care about. Someone who stole from 2 other women and planned to steal from you. That's your interpretation. Leo explained everything. Explained the word that had preceded every lie Leo had ever told her. What did he explain exactly? Mary's eyes flashed with defensive anger. That those women were bitter about relationships that didn't work out. That you paid them to lie about him. That you're so obsessed with controlling me that you'll destroy anyone who threatens that control. Leo's psychological manipulation was masterful. He'd taken every truth about his crimes and inverted it into evidence of my persecution. Worse, he'd exploited Mary's deepest fear, that I was controlling rather than protective. Mary, look at the evidence, the marriage certificates, the financial records, the pattern. Evidence can be interpreted many ways. You have money and connections. Leo has nothing but the truth. I stared at my daughter and realized Leo had won this round completely. Every legal victory I'd achieved had been reframed as proof of my wealth and power being used unfairly. My protection had become control. My evidence had become manipulation. My love had become possession. That evening, Richard called with the final blow. Dale. Reeves filed a motion claiming selective prosecution. He's arguing that Leo's being unfairly targeted because of your influence. Worse, they're threatening to subpoena your communications with law enforcement, claiming you're orchestrating a personal vendetta disguised as justice. Can they do that? If they convince a judge that this is harassment rather than legitimate prosecution, yes. And honestly, your involvement makes that argument stronger. I sat in my home office surrounded by 30 years of legal experience and realized I'd made a fundamental error. I'd treated Leo like an amateur when he was actually a professional, not just at fraud, but at survival. While I'd been mobilizing my network, he'd been studying the system's weaknesses. While I'd been building a case, he'd been rebuilding Mary's psychological dependence. My phone buzzed, a text from Mary. Dad, I need some space to figure things out. Please don't contact me for a while. Space. The one thing that would give Leo unlimited access to continue his psychological reconstruction of her reality. I'd won the first battle through superior resources and professional connections. But Leo had won the war by understanding that Mary was the only prize that mattered, and the only battlefield where victory was truly possible. 4 days of silence from Mary had taught me something crucial about warfare. Sometimes retreat is the only path to victory. Saturday morning found me in a downtown coffee shop, waiting for a woman I'd never met, but who held the key to saving my daughter. Jennifer Walsh arrived precisely at 10, professional in a way that spoke of someone who'd rebuilt her life methodically. Tall, confident, carrying a leather portfolio that suggested success, hard-won after devastating loss. Mr. Rivera, I'm Jennifer Walsh. Dale, please, thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy. She slid into the booth across from me, her eyes sharp with the intelligence Leo had once exploited. I've been waiting 3 years for someone to ask about Leo Morrison. I want him stopped. Tell me exactly how he operated. Every detail matters. Jennifer opened her portfolio, revealing documents organized with business-like precision. Leo is methodical. He researches targets carefully. Successful women with emotional vulnerabilities. Recent divorce, death in family, professional isolation. I thought of Mary after Sarah's death, how vulnerable 13-year-old grief had shaped her need for approval. He told me his ex-wife had destroyed him financially. Jennifer continued, made me feel like I was rescuing him with my love and stability. Mary mentioned Leo had financial problems from past relationships. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is the joint account for our future together. Stage 3 is the urgent business opportunity that requires immediate investment. She spread bank statements across the table, transfers totaling $250,000 over 18 months. How did you finally realize what was happening? When I caught him researching my rental property values and calculating equity withdrawal possibilities. Jennifer's voice hardened. He wasn't planning our future. He was appraising my assets. What happened when you confronted him? He turned it around, made me feel guilty for not trusting him, for being suspicious of our love. That's his greatest skill, making victims blame themselves for his crimes. The pattern was breathtakingly familiar. Leo hadn't just stolen Mary's money. He'd stolen her ability to trust her own judgment. Jennifer, I need to ask something difficult. Is Leo planning to disappear? Her face went pale. Has he mentioned business opportunities in other states? Consulting work that requires travel? My stomach dropped. Mary said something about Leo considering expansion to Nevada. That's how he left me. Sudden business trip that became permanent relocation. By the time I realized what happened, he'd transferred everything to offshore accounts. How long before he typically runs? 18 months maximum, but if pressured, he can accelerate. How long has he been with your daughter? 8 months. Then you have days, not weeks. When pressure mounts, Leo doesn't just disappear. He takes everything he can carry. I spent the afternoon documenting Jennifer's testimony, cross-referencing her timeline with Mary's relationship progression. The parallels were terrifying. Every romantic gesture, every promise, every financial request followed Leo's established playbook exactly. At 4 o'clock, Jennifer made a call that changed everything. Amanda, it's Jennifer Walsh. I'm with another father whose daughter is involved with Leo Morrison. She handed me the phone. Mr. Rivera, Amanda's voice was steady but sad. I lost everything to Leo. My savings, my house, my ability to trust anyone. Don't let him do that to your daughter. Will you help me stop him? I've been ready to testify for 3 years. Just tell me when and where. By evening, I had what prosecutors call a pattern case. Multiple victims, identical methods, documented financial crimes, and witnesses willing to testify. More importantly, I had something Leo couldn't manipulate or discredit, the voices of women who'd survived him and wanted justice. But time was running out. Jennifer's timeline analysis suggested Leo would move within days. Mary was completely under his influence, believing she was protecting him from my persecution. I looked at the evidence spread across my dining room table. Not just documents this time, but the testimonies of 2 women whose lives Leo had destroyed. Tomorrow I would have to choose between respecting Mary's request for space and saving her from the same fate. The phone rang. Marcus, my detective. Dale, we have a problem. Leo's been making unusual financial moves, large cash withdrawals, travel bookings. It looks like he's preparing to run. I glanced at the clock. 7 p.m. If Leo was following his established pattern, Mary had less than 48 hours before she woke up to find her life savings gone and her husband vanished. Monday morning arrived with the sound of car doors slamming in the parking lot below. I watched from my office window as Detective Marcus Porter led 2 uniformed officers toward Mary's apartment building. In my hand, I held the warrant we'd obtained based on Jennifer's testimony and Amanda's corroborating evidence. The time for subtle approaches had ended. I met them at Mary's door, carrying the complete evidence file, bank records, marriage certificates, witness statements from 2 women whose lives Leo had destroyed. Behind me, Jennifer Walsh stepped out of her rental car, ready to face the man who'd stolen her future. My key still worked. Mary's shocked face appeared as we entered, confusion turning to horror as she saw the police officers. Dad, what's happening? Leo said you were trying to destroy us. Mary, I need you to listen to Jennifer. She has something important to tell you. Leo emerged from the bedroom, already dressed, a packed suitcase barely visible behind him. His confident mask slipped when he saw Jennifer. This is harassment, he said, but his voice carried the tremor of a man whose world was collapsing. You can't just break into our home with police. Leo Morrison, Detective Porter announced, you're under arrest for fraud in the first degree, theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Leo made one final attempt at manipulation. Mary, you have to believe me. I love you more than anything. Don't let them turn you against me. Jennifer stepped forward, holding the file of evidence we'd compiled. Mary, Leo did the same things to me he's done to you. Identical words, identical promises. That's impossible, Mary whispered, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. Leo loves me. We're married. He married me too. Jennifer's voice was steady, professional. Then he disappeared with $250,000 of my money. I watched Mary's face as Jennifer spread the evidence across the kitchen table. Bank statements showing Leo's debts. Marriage certificates proving his bigamy. Recorded conversations where Leo used the exact same romantic phrases with 3 different women. Leo, is it true? Mary's voice broke. Were you planning to leave with my money? Leo's facade finally crumbled completely. Mary, they're all lying. Your father paid them to destroy us. But Mary was reading Jennifer's bank statements, seeing the pattern of gradual financial exploitation that Leo had planned for her. That's what you told Jennifer, Mary said quietly. Word for word. I heard the recording. As the officers led Leo away, he made one last desperate appeal. Mary, don't let him control you. This is exactly what he wanted. But Mary was already stepping toward me, away from the man who'd spent 8 months systematically destroying her ability to trust her own judgment. Dad, she whispered, tears finally coming. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. You have nothing to apologize for, I said, opening my arms as she collapsed against me. You were being manipulated by an expert. How can you forgive me after everything I said to you? I held my daughter, really held her, for the first time in 8 months, because you're my daughter and I love you. That never changed, not even when you couldn't see it. Later, after the police had left and Jennifer had returned to her hotel, Mary and I sat in her kitchen surrounded by the evidence of Leo's crimes. I feel so stupid, she said. Don't. Leo fooled successful, intelligent women repeatedly. His crime wasn't theft. It was making victims blame themselves for his expertise. What happens now? Now you heal, and Leo faces justice, and we rebuild what he tried to destroy. Mary looked at me with eyes that seemed clearer than they'd been in months. Dad? Yes? Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. Outside, the San Diego afternoon sun streamed through windows that had been darkened by deception for too long. For the first time in 8 months, my daughter was truly home. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.